Hello, listeners. This is the Nerdvana podcast, where we are going to be talking about a more unconventional movie compared to the ones we've done in the past. And it is I guess you could say it's a modern classic called Arrival. I definitely call it a modern masterpiece.
Yeah, it's one of those films that, I don't know, it's just one of those films that doesn't really define a generation, but it's certainly one of those films that I think everybody needs to see.
Oh yeah, it's listed on that. And for me, it's definitely one of those movies those rare movies where you only see it once, and it's like it sticks with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how it was put together. First time I experienced that was Citizen Kane. So far I've only seen that I think 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. For Arrival, this was actually my second one. I saw it once, and then I had to, like, a couple years ago, and then I saw it again for this review.
Yeah, this was the first time I watched it, and I gotta say, I'm impressed.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's a movie by Denis Villeneuve, who would actually go on who previously made Sicario, another winner of a few Oscars, and would also make Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to the Ridley Scott masterpiece, I mean, it definitely has its fans and its non-fans, but I digress. And so it's a basic story about alien contact that's both typical but not at the same time, and the atypical parts of it is where it really shines.
Oh yeah, I mean, this could have very easily become one of those Independence Day alien shoot 'em up alien movies, and I'm glad they didn't really do that.
Yeah, or like in the old ones, War of the Worlds, The Day the Earth Stood Still. But I guess you could kind of make it based on my movie knowledge, it's kind of a combination of Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Contact. With Contact,
Mm-hmm.
and I've only seen parts of that movie, and don't know if you have seen that.
I haven't seen either of them, but I know what about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah,
Of
Contact.
course I do. It's a Spielberg movie.
Yeah, Contact. Young Matthew McConaughey.
Ooh.
Enough said.
Track that one down.
All right. So anyway, the whole story. All right. So Ian, what is the story about?
The story is about, well, trying to communicate with alien visitors, I guess. they're not exactly invading. There's just 12 spacecraft that appear all around the planet. No real rhyme or reason. They just show up randomly across the globe. And the team we follow has to try to communicate with them before China decides to wage war. And this is one of those movies where, I mean, a lot of movies want you to go, like, they want to urge the audience to say, yeah, blow them up, take them down. And this one's like, no, just talk to them. Like, see why they're here. They haven't done anything malicious. They're just hanging out.
Yeah, and that's kind of that is what's atypical about this, is that is not atypical, is that they are trying to establish a communication with the aliens instead of that with the whole, share the fruits of our labor and all that kind of thing, or all your base are belong to us.
Yeah, it's just like, and honestly, it's something that very well could be something in our future. I mean, say extraterrestrial life does find its way here, or we find our way there. How would we communicate? Exactly.
Yeah.
That we would have to find some sort of common medium, or sort of like decode what they say and what we communicate to them, and try to figure things out.
And I think what's amazing is that even if you kind of take the alien angle off to the side, it is pretty much just telling people that it doesn't always have to be like a fight or a conflict. I mean, just talk. Just talk with people who are different, or are of different cultures, or who think differently. Just talk and find something, find a way to understand. And it's essentially like it's a philosophical story that kind of makes it's kind of telling people to kind of look at themselves and look at their world. All right, so yeah, it is amazing, and I'll say it's one of those movies that you don't have to watch too many times to just get. I mean, it's that movie that pretty much you have an experience from. All right, so and also to add to your storyline, Ian, there's also a nice little twist at the end.
Yeah, this is...
No, we'll get to that later. Get that. All right, our cast of characters. We'll kind of talk about three of them, at least the ones that are kind of the more important. There's Amy Adams in the lead role of Dr. Louise Banks, who's a linguist expert. Actually, she teaches at a university. Hawkeye, our very own Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, plays a theoretical physicist. Ian Donnelly, I actually forgot his name for a second. And third character, at least the one that made the one I remembered, Forrest Whitaker, who plays a colonel. Let's see, what was his name?
Colonel G.T. Weber.
Colonel Weber. was very he was nice, and um they were I gotta say that this the acting was just very well. All the cast members, especially Adams and Renner, they had such great chemistry together. And see, and for Renner, I've only known him as an action star. The Born Legacy, Avengers, obviously. So to see him kind of play a scientist and trying to trying to be like a liaison to aliens was it took me a bit to wrap my head around that, but again, he played it very well.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. All right, so the aliens. Okay, so these are not your xenomorphs or little green men. These look like squids.
Yeah, cephalopod, which is a very interesting design, I might add.
Let's see. There was something in the trivia about this. Like that's supposed to be. I think that's supposed to be based on the scientific theory that the next evolutionary step, or at least the next dominant species, after we as humans leave the planet, would be cephalopods.
I have heard that, and that I do like that train of thought. It makes sense. They're very intelligent, and the design they gave these heptapods is very, very interesting. They're honestly that weird combination of creepy and beautiful.
Yeah. So don't you think it's kind of weird, or kind of almost, I don't know, poetic, that what's supposed to be like the next step in evolution, after humans leave the earth, that the ones that kind of help humans in their next step of evolution is the aliens are technically cephalopod in design?
Yeah.
And
I mean, assume we don't kill ourselves off.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be so different than from our previous reviews.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
All right, Ian, what stood out to you the most, actually?
That's the entire concept. I mean, it's one of those movies that doesn't really feel like it. Well, it's not an action movie. No. It just the acting, it's all more mellow than anything. It's a rather mellow movie that's meant to ease you into that world. And honestly, it feels real. This is one of those science fiction movies that feels real. I mean, this came out in what, 2016? Yeah. So, I mean, just everything that they do, the step-by-step how they walk through communicating with these creatures and just trying to get to know them. And it's just so cool. Honestly, I might go back and revisit this movie with friends because it's such a good movie. But and the various ways, like how one symbol has multiple meanings. Like it says here that when they ask them why they came, they answer in a statement which is translated to offer weapon. And China goes off the rails with that.
No surprise there.
and other nations follow China's example of breaking off and begin to declare war on these beings. Whereas our team that we've been following argues it could be more abstract, like tool instead of weapon. And it's kind of an important detail.
Yeah, and also and just kind of brilliant as to how pretty much cultures have different meanings for different words.
Mm-hmm.
And I first heard weapon, and I'm like, oh my god, they're hostile. And then luckily, Amy Adams is there to say, don't know if that means like something that harms or just a tool.
Yeah,
like you said. So yeah, that's amazing. I love how it sort of builds up. It's a slow movie. It has the slow pacing of Alien, and which is funny because when I first saw the trailer for Arrival, it sort of builds it up as like this is going to be like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially when they get on the craft, they actually meet the aliens for the first time. You're surrounded by this dark, squared tunnel with a bunch of fog as being the only light source, and it gives that
gravity's a little wonky.
Gravity's shifted, I guess. And
how that works, I want to know.
And so yeah, it kind of gives this feeling of uneasiness. It was amazing, and
I don't know. I don't have much to say about this movie. It's just so good. Acting's good, characters are good. I wish they personally went into more of the biology of the creature.
Mm-hmm. You want them to go into more of the biology? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why issues?
No, I think I was just talking while you were talking.
Oh. Yeah, occasionally you're getting robot voice.
Yeah, that happens on your end too. All right, so anyway, okay, so how this was actually the first movie that I found out. It was shot with a modern digital camera, but the lenses of choice were actually vintage lenses. And so, and sort of the reason, so the lenses of choice for some scenes were these sorry, I'm kind of going film nerd I'm going like film technical nerd on this, listeners. But the lenses of choice for some scenes were these lenses from Zeiss called the super speeds, and they're pretty good for low light situations. These are like the Cuban cigars of cinema lenses, because they're so popular, and they were used in a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s. To name a few: The Shining, RoboCop, Lost in Translation. So a lot of good movies were shot on these lenses. And I found out that the director of photography is named Bradford Young, and he's also worked on the movie Selma. If you've seen that one, Ian. That is also a pretty good one. Let's see here. Here we go. He goes, "We shot with." This is an interview from on nofilmschool.com. We shot with the Alexa XST. I shot with two different kinds of lenses, some vintage ultra primes from Camtech, and I also used super speeds. And here we go. In terms of lensing, I'm always a fan of picking the right lens for the right moment. Sometimes that means I've got a Frankenstein ragtag of lenses, but I chose the ones I felt would soften and give me a lot of exploring power in the darkness. I chose those two lenses because they gave me very different looks. And and when you look at Arrival, you definitely kind of see that it looks different from from most modern movies. And I like that it was shot on vintage glass, because vintage lenses, there's some of them will have more characteristics that modern lenses just try to get away from, like the amount of flaring, or any kind of flaws, like chromatic aberrations. But some even have some things that can't be matched by modern lenses, such as how they what's the word I'm looking for? How they God, I always hate them. I hate those pauses. How they render the skin and some of them can give like a soft, creamy look. And you see some of that in Arrival. That's kind of what I like. This movie is about things coming full circle, and how there is a bigger picture than what we're given.
Yeah.
Good God, I had like a long train of thought, but I don't want to like hijack the whole review as like I usually do. Yeah. I think let's see. Yeah, this is a movie that's really loves playing with light.
Oh
Ian,
my gosh, this is like Spielberg levels of light.
like Ian, Ian, like how, like did it bother your eyes of how much darkness, or how kind of like washed out or muted everything was?
Not really. I watched this right here on my laptop with all the lights turned off.
Oh, I probably should have done that. All I did was just watch it. I just watched it on my computer with the lights on.
Well, there's your problem.
Yeah. What do you think of the design for the alien language?
Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that in any sort of media. I mean, we've seen things in Prometheus, and we've seen I know that's not the best movie in the world, but bear with me here. I mean, basically all the alien languages that I've seen at least superficially look like ours.
Yeah, and they're usually very common. They're like glyphs.
Mm-hmm.
They're yeah.
Which is basically what most human languages are.
Yeah. So yes. Oh, go ahead.
This whole the circular language and way of conveying information I've never seen ever. It's a very unique and interesting way of conveying an alien written language. It's so cool. I love it. And how each little bit is a different meaning. Not exactly a word, but basically what correlates to words in English, at least. It's so good.
And yeah, and seems to be very very complex.
Oh my gosh,
Like
so complex.
I think, who was it? Was it Renner or Adams's character that said that it's like right? Don Renner said it. It was like trying to write with both hands at the same time. You know, write a whole sentence.
Yeah.
Both. I actually had a middle school math teacher who could write his name backwards. You know, he was right-handed, but he had but he had surgery on that shoulder, so he had to use his left hand, and he pretty much just taught himself to write backwards. It just made me think of that. And so, all right, I think we're kind of stalling for like what's the biggest part of the story. At least from a story writer's perspective, and from an editor. Well, okay, as a whole, narratively, the movie is has sort of a linear plot line, but doesn't at the same time. We get splashes of flashbacks of Amy's life, you know, with her daughter, and all that kind of thing. It implies that she was married, now divorced, and lost a daughter to cancer. But as it turns out, as the movie keeps going forward, it turns out that they're not flashbacks, they're flash forwards, which is amazing because it all goes back to the alien's language, and it's even hinted at by Donnelly, Renner's character, about explaining the, what was it, logograph? Is that what it was called? I forget what it was called. I need to look up the quotes. But it's hinted at that the heptapod's
logogram.
Logogram. Okay, that it's not bound by time, and that kind of thing. So it turns out that knowledge of this language, that's the weapon they were referring to, is pretty much knowledge of being able to see into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know. I don't know how, but that probably isn't. But it's a cool concept. I don't know. Probably same concept as the Bible code. If you remember, probably heard of that, Ian.
I have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Although but this one's much more cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole point. So, and that's when I really started to get invested in this movie, is when it starts going out of order, because it's like this is putting us into Banks's mindset, that because of her work with the aliens and translating this language, is that she is starting to kind of like think like them. That hypothesis that they mentioned, that you can actually wire your brain to understand a language if you study it. Let's see, it's mentioned in the, I think it was mentioned in the trivia, if not the Wikipedia page. I'm not finding it. Okay.
Regardless.
Regardless, that's so. I really love the editing of this, because then it kind of really I picked up on that about halfway through the movie, that she's starting to kind of like think like the visitors. how this is actually making them being able to understand their language much more clearer. But I gotta say, I was shocked. I was shocked when really that learning the language was actually the key. Was actually the key to seeing the future, and then you find out that really that the memories of her daughter are actually visions from the future, and that it turns out she and Donnelly get married
temporarily.
Yeah, that's which is sad. Very sad. It was amazing, and I like the whole concept. I like the whole concept of how these were 12. These were 12. Essentially, these were 12 messengers that were pretty much giving every nation, or at least every continent, like superpower in the nation, a piece of information, and that the only way to get it is to bring all the pieces together.
Yeah, work together.
Mm-hmm. Which we really need a lot of nowadays.
That's really what this movie is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do we need to work together just simply as humans, but also as intelligent creatures with things that might not be human.
Mm-hmm. And that's why this movie is such a great experience, and one of those films that you just see once and it like sticks with you. Just the whole,
oh my gosh, yeah,
just the idea and the concepts and the resolutions behind it. It is amazing. I love the little bits of humor that they get into. My favorite one is, of course, they named the creatures Abbott and Costello. It sounds random, but actually it's very fitting. Yeah, so Ian, I manage a baseball team.
No.
Yeah, well, I do, and they got some of them. They have these funny names. There's who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Oh, I get it. I've seen that. It's been so long. I gotta track that down.
Yes, that's that's why it's so very fitting to name them Abbott and Costello. Their famous bit, the who's on first, is pretty much about the confusion of language and communication.
I love it. Excellent touch.
Yeah. So Ian, what did you think of the heptapods? I mean, for most part, we see just like the tentacles. I have no other word of what to call them. But what did you think when you finally kind of see them as a whole?
Oh, it's beautiful. Not only do they look cool and creepy and beautiful at the same time, but the CG is awesome.
Oh, yeah. In some parts, Amy's hair, when she's sort of like when she's like inside, it kind of doesn't. It kind of does. You can tell it's fake.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Most of the money went to the heptapod.
True, and it was pretty cool, and I liked how they sort of like gave them a head and shoulders, and there's even points when the camera actually like points at them, like that's actually where they're speaking from.
Hmm. And I love like when the session, like the communication section is done, occasionally one would just fly off like it was swimming away, and that's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah. It is. Yeah, this is a really great movie, and also I kind of like I also like the idea. It was pretty clear that this movie was not made so that it could appeal to the Chinese audience, because I don't think the Chinese would have loved how they were portrayed in this.
Yeah.
And so, and so yeah, if you want to know what I'm talking about, just leave a comment below. I don't want to get into the whole Chinese box office. And anyway, yeah, I mean, this movie is like an iceberg.
It really is.
I mean, it looks simple up top, but there's so much more underneath.
Oh my god, yeah. And honestly, we need more movies like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you can have your big action movies, and yeah, that's fun. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's these quiet movies that really make you think. Those are the ones I think we need.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh. Oh yeah, this is a pretty short review. Ian, what was your favorite part? I guess let's go to that.
Oh my god. I guess like that short little montage of them really starting to communicate with them, and with Jeremy Renner walking alongside with the whiteboard in the back saying Ian walks, and he's walking along and Heptapod is walking alongside him. I love that so much. I love it so much. Just like how they're really starting to get a feel for these things. And it's just I keep going back to this. I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I like the part because this was like the big eureka moment for me when I finally figured out what this movie is. It was when after one of the sessions where Adam seems to be having sleep trouble, and they talk about that hypothesis that I couldn't name, and it kind of, and then it kind of cut, and she looks off camera, and then it cuts to where she's looking at, and it is the heptapod. It's surprising as all hell, but after a second viewing, I kind of realized this was foreshadowing of her semi-actual physical contact with the alien, and that's my second part, because it was just after there was a plan to blow up the craft, and the aliens forcibly push them out so that to protect them, which is amazing.
I love like when they're both like tapping on the glass, trying to convey like, hey, you guys get out.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep tapping, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. So
I love it.
I love that too, but it's the physical contact that I love when she's in the white foggy room, and
yeah,
I like when, and it's sad, but also kind of shows. It does make me think of immigrants who learn our language who don't really have a grasp on it. It says, Abbott is dying process.
Mm-hmm. Which
is death process, and I mean, yeah,
According to Wikipedia, it's the explosion. That's what Costello's referring to.
I thought it just meant that he is dying. He's
That's what I thought
gravely
initially, but Wikipedia says. No, it doesn't really matter. But
okay.
that's just what it says here.
Yes, but I love that. I like that this is the one time we actually see subtitles of what they're trying to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and that Luis has the quote unquote weapon, which and honestly I love that decision that she's the one who has the knowledge. She's the one who has that gift because she's a linguist. She knows the importance of language.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, at least keeping with a theme. But I like that she's sort of like the spiritual successor to Ripley from Alien. I know we made that reference. This is only the second time I'm referring to that, but yeah, she is the maternal character, but she's the one who we're rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have said, but no, she's the only maternal character, and we are also rooting for her. We want her to succeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, God, I would probably watch this movie. I would watch this movie again. I would, and I think I will.
Yeah, same here. Once COVID's over, I'm gonna get together with some friends and we're gonna watch this.
All right. Okay, really great movie, and I know we don't have it's not a lot to talk about, but it's kind of hard to pick apart a really good movie, especially one with this much going for it. That's in it. All right, so Ian, what's your rating?
Honestly, 10 out of 10 for what it is.
And I'd have to agree.
Good movie. Everyone should watch it. Takes an interesting concept and just runs with it straight to the finish line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree with you. I have nothing more to add to that. All right, and so I think we will cut Nerdvana a little short today. And you know what, Ian? I think maybe it's been about a year. Why don't we review a bad movie this next month?
A bad movie?
We haven't done a bad movie since RoboCop 3. And I looked back on that and really it was just average.
Yeah. What bad movie should we do?
I don't know. We'll think of it next month.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you haven't seen Arrival, I go watch it. We highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those few movies that we both rate 10 out of 10. And I didn't give How to Train Your Dragon 10 out of 10.
No, you didn't.
I gave it 9.99998.
That's right. Okay, so until next time, this is John Murphy
and Ian Benoit
signing off.